Okay. Prelim notables. Let me just pull up this topology screen real quick.
How many prelim notables do you got, Keith? 2 or 3?
I am going to go with 2 that I feel really good about and 1 that I don't feel so good about, but I'm going to take anyway. So 3 in total.
All right, cool. Well, I can kick it off first. I'm starting off at the bottom of the card or the top of the card, depends on how you're looking at it. The first fight of the night, Cody Garbrandt taking on Trevin Jones. And in this fight, I think I'm going to be leaning with Trevin Jones. At the end of the day, Cody Garbrandt has gotten knocked out very easily in his last few bouts. It seems that his chin is just not improving, and just moving up a 10-pound weight class, I don't think that that's necessarily going to do much to repair the damage. It's already been done to Cody Garbrandt's chin. He is, the younger guy in this fight, but Trevin Jones has a lot of power. He's fought a lot of really good guys. Javid Basharat comes to mind. And he's got a 4-5 inch reach advantage in this fight over Cody Garbrandt. Trevin Jones is somebody who's got very solid stand-up, and for Cody Garbrandt, you don't see him going in there and trying to grapple or wrestle, even though he probably has a little bit stronger of a grappling acumen than one might believe. I just think Cody Garbrandt, unfortunately, at this point, the ship has sailed on his career. I think his chin has irreparable damage done to it, and moving up and changing weight classes and moving around his body is not going to help him anymore at that. Certainly he may have more of a chin at 35 than he did at 25 and being drained, but at the end of the day, I just think the ship has sailed on Cody Garbrandt. I think he's quick, but he's going to have difficulty landing on Trevin Jones because Trevin Jones is so long. And, like I said, Trevin Jones has fought well against Javid Basharat, went back and forth. He's, somebody who's lost some close decisions against some high-quality competition and hasn't really had chin issues up until this point. So because of those reasons, I know Cody's fast and Cody's powerful, but I just think he's not going to get the opportunity to land on Trevin Jones. He knocked out, Rafael Assunção at the end of the second round, and that's mostly because Rafael was just standing there right in front of him, and I don't think that's going to happen with Trevin Jones. So I'm taking Trevin Jones, the underdog, to get the win in this fight.
Yeah, this is the one that I was like a little bit uncertain about, just because, you never know if like one of these days old Cody is just going to magically reappear. He's had some of the greatest moments in the UFC, like that Dominic Cruz fight, TJ Dillashaw fight. Like he's had some great fights, or fights plural. But yeah, he's older. And also another one of my favorite Cody Garbrandt moments is getting ready for his last fight. Yeah, last fight against KKF, my boy. He was like, he kept calling him Steven instead of Kaikar France. It's like, this guy's name is not Steven, bro. And then it turns out, Cody Garbrandt is just still whacked out. Like he's shot, man. But
I think part of that was because Cody Garbrandt's son is named Kai, so he didn't want to address Kai as Kai. But to pick Steven, I don't know necessarily where that came from. Potentially that could have been just covering something up.
Yeah. You kept calling him Steven.
He was like, actually, this is one.
Yeah. I'm fighting Steven France. No, but anyways, yeah, Cody Garbrandt, chin broken. I would like to see old Cody come back at some point because it was super impressive. Trevin Jones isn't like the best competition. He's probably the worst guy that Cody Garbrandt's ever faced. But this feels like almost like a long shot in a way. And I'm willing to take it because it's still, I think, like plus, what is it for Trevin Jones? Plus 140. Mm-hmm. So, you got a plus 140 Trevin Jones, a broken Cody Garbrandt, and 68% of the people on Tapology have Cody Garbrandt to win, and then 71% of those people to win by TKO, and 84% of the people coming in on Trevin Jones have him by knockout. I'm going to side with those people. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. Trevin Jones by KO. Otherwise, I think if this goes to a decision, that Cody Garbrandt has a good chance, winning. But he gets touched once and he goes, good night. Next up, I'm gonna take Ian Gary over Keenan Song. Let me check these odds out real quick. Should have done that before, but Ian Gary, minus 600, minus 550. All right. Well, I had to figure that it was going to look like that. This is like one of their new poster boys in the UFC. As bad as he wants to be, right? You know, he calls himself the new McGregor and trying to market himself the same way.
Right.
Can't deny the kid is pretty talented. Hasn't faced the best level of competition in the UFC so far. That Darian Weeks fight was a little suspect 2 fights ago for him. Darren Weeks was definitely bringing it to him. And then, Gabe Green. Okay. Hoping this week, you can get it done in stunning fashion against Keenan Song. I would like to see that because I think Ian Gary is like marketable for being cringe. He's like the cringe McGregor or Conor McCringe. He's going to develop one of those nicknames, but talented stand-up fighter. And Keenan Song is really nothing special whatsoever. It's a setup fight. You know, they just are trying to build up this Ian. Now I'm noticing his name is now Ian Machado Gary. That's new. So, Ian Gary. It's like we were talking about boxing before and how Tommy Fury fought tomato cans for the first chunk of his career. That's kind of what's happening with Ian Gary. So I'm rolling with him there. I don't know what the method of victory is going to be, but straight up, you can put him in a parlay. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I'm going with Ian Machado Gary. I mean, I think he's a heavy favorite, so it might make this unbettable. Keenan Song, we haven't seen him in the UFC in the last 2 years. Max Griffin knocked him out last time we saw, and I think that was like one of his first knockouts, at least in the UFC. Lost to a decision against Alex Morono. At the end of the day, Keenan Song is, I think he's more of a stand-up guy who has some decent power in his hands, but only getting one knockout over Colin Potter. He doesn't have the greatest strength of schedule inside of the UFC. Ian Gary is definitely going to be the bigger guy, the longer guy, the younger guy, probably have a little bit more speed on him. So I think, like you said, it's going to be a setup fight. They don't want to see anything bad happen to Ian Machado Gary at this point. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's because he has a pretty solid following from like the Ireland community. They're very close knit. But at the end of the day, he's the younger guy. He's the prospect. I don't see Keenan Song giving him too many issues that, Gabe Green or Darian Weeks didn't give him. So I'm going with Ian Gary here. I think that's pretty much a lock, but because of the way the line is right now, I don't know if it's necessarily bettable. I would put him into a parlay and try and make that a little bit sweeter, but that's where I would be going with that. And, I think the knockout is definitely possible or plausible, but it's hard to say exactly because of the 2-year layoff for Keenan Song.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And especially being that Ian Gary, like, over his last 2 fights, he didn't really show any true power. So I'm kind of leaning towards decision for Ian Machado Gary.
And that would kind of be in line. That would be in line with him too, right? Because then, he's been a guy who has like these expectations, doesn't necessarily miss them, but doesn't necessarily meet them either. So I think him getting a decision over a setup fight that he's supposed to get a knockout would be a very Ian Machado Gary thing to do.
Is this he was just Ian Gary before, right?
Yeah, he got married and he took his wife's last name for a reason because I think she has kids and he wants to be thought of as their dad too, so that he wanted to have their last name. I think that was the story behind it.
Oh,
I could have just made that up, but
well, I hope that's the case. That's like pretty honorable, I like that if that's the reason. But if I find out it's not true and then it's actually stupid shit, I'm gonna be upset with Ian Gary. But no, I like the kid, and it's also weird for me. Like this guy's 25, I'm 25. It's weird that professional athletes are like this. I don't know. It's like just starting to hit me with a lot of NFL players and UFC fighters nowadays. All right, what's your next one?
I'm going to be going with the Cuban Missile Crisis. He should rename him as the Miley Cyrus Crisis because he really fumbled the bag in an unbelievable way. Him saying, I think he wanted to, he called Miley Cyrus out for some reason after a fight. He also is the guy who does a podcast with, I forget the porn star.
Kendra Lust.
Does a podcast with Kendra Lust. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate you knowing that.
Well, I know my podcast.
Anyway, So yeah, he's got the podcast with Kendra Lust. He tried to call out Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus actually responded and said if he shaved an MC into his chest hair, which he doesn't have much of, so maybe they're saying that's a great fumble. I don't know if it was because maybe she said shave it in your chest hair, knowing damn well he doesn't have enough chest hair to shave that in there. So maybe it was set up for failure. But instead of even trying, he just tried to throw it back around and be like, "Oh yeah, get a henna tattoo," like fucking idiot. So anyway, he's a strong grappler. I think he had a bad performance last time out against Gregory Rodriguez, but a lot of people are doing that lately, so I'm not going to hold that too much against him. He has a plotting style. He will go forward. He has some decent power in his hands, but he's going to try and grapple you. And he did that against Sam Alvey, submitting him. Anaconda choke over Miki Pitolo. He had a split decision over Alicio Di Chirico, which, again, he looked pretty solid in that fight, and I'm not going to hold that too much against him. And then when you just look at, in his fifth fight, Darren Stewart, he got a front choke over him. So definitely a submission threat. He's a big, strong guy at 185, and he's going to be the bigger guy in this fight too. He's not going to quite have the reach advantage. He's going to have 2-inch disadvantage, but I think that's negligible when he's going to be the bigger guy and have much more strength on him. Going against Marc-Andre Barriault, power bar, he's just not lived up to maybe expectations lately. He has most recently the lost over arm triangle choke to Anthony Hernandez. And, I like Anthony Hernandez a lot, so I'm not going to hold that against him. He's got the submission win over Jordan Bright, who just got cut from the UFC. He lost to Chidi Njoku, overhand right to ground strikes, and Chidi Njoku isn't someone to necessarily write home about. He's not terrible, but he's about a middle of the road UFC fighter. Getting knocked out by him doesn't mean that you're going to probably make it to the top echelon. I'm not saying that Julian Marquez is, but when you have wins over Dalcho Leon Gambula, no longer in the UFC. Abu Azaitar, I don't believe he's in the UFC anymore, and that's going back almost 2 years ago. Marc-Andre Barriault, when it gets to a certain level of competition, a certain caliber of opponent, he just can't come through. And I think Julian Marquez, even though he had the most recent loss over Gregory Rodriguez and a loss to Alicio Di Chirico, I think he's beating guys who are more on the Marc-Andre Barriault level, like Maki Pitolo, like Sam Alvey. And then you just add in the fact that Marc-Andre Barriault was submitted last time out by Anthony Hernandez. I think Julian Marquez is maybe like a diet Anthony Hernandez in some regard, and I think he should be able to get this one done. And I think a submission is probably pretty likely. Now, Tapology is going with Marquez winning by knockout. That may also be the case because, like I said, we've seen Barriault just not be able to handle that top level of competition. I think Hernandez might have even dropped him before getting that submission. I may be misremembering that, but I think Julian Marquez goes out there, gets it done by finish.
Yeah, I like that pick, especially because Marquez, the line really makes a lot of sense for him. Coming in at plus 105 across a lot of books right now. You look at best fight odds, that's usually, that seems to be the MO right now for Julian Marquez. And I mean, I can't say it any better than you just did. So I'll roll with you on that one too. And I like Julian Marquez, cool guy. Inside, outside the octagon, major fumble with Miley Cyrus, unfortunately. Because that would have been cool if, Miley Cyrus, this mega superstar, is dating like a mid-tier UFC fighter. That would have been kind of dope.
What might have been good for the sport at the very least. You know how, I know the Raiders, I think they just signed like a backup tight end or defensive end or defensive lineman because his wife was very famous on TikTok. So I feel like, more and more of these, sports companies, organizations are going to be like, hey, let's just sign him because his wife is famous and that'll bring viewers. Because at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right? You're trying to draw viewers. Speaking of viewers, not Derek Brunson.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not. Derek Brunson is not the draw in this fight for me. Like, I'm watching this for, if anybody's been watching this for quite some time, I'm a huge Dricus du Plessis fan. DDP, that's my guy. He's another one of my I'm going to call him a prelim notable simply because, Derek Brunson is a pretty good wrestler, and DDP remains to be seen. He did out wrestle Darren Till quite a bit in his last fight. This guy's been fighting good competition, slowly rising up in the middleweight division. Darren Till, nice rear naked choke over him. Good win over Brad Tavares. That was a bloodbath. Kevin Giles. It's just the names go on. And then obviously Derek Brunson's got a pretty good resume himself. Most recent loss, nasty KO by Jared Cannonier. Also a rear naked choke over Darren Till. Kevin Holland, that was Kevin Holland just yapping at the camera the whole time while he was getting out wrestled. Edmund Shabazi and Ian Heinisch. Derek Brunson is a guy that's been in that title conversation for quite some time. So, a win for DDP over Derek Brunson really puts him in a good spot in this division. He's an exciting guy. He's dangerous to himself more than anybody else because he likes to run forward and leave his chin completely exposed and just like Superman punches his opponent like way across the octagon. But exciting guy, strong guy, super powerful. If he can land on Derek Brunson's chin, I have no doubts that he could put Derek Brunson to sleep. Takedown defense, ground game might be good enough to beat Derek Brunson, but just gonna check the odds real quick. I mean, I'm a huge DDP fan, and lately, the fighters I've been fans of have not been letting me down. Like I took Erin Blanchfield the other night, kind of on a whim, and she went out there and did her thing, big time. So yeah, Derek, what'd you say?
I said Volk.
Yeah, well, listen, he actually
in
won.
your eyes, he did not let you down because he won.
He won that fight. So yeah, we got Derek Brunson coming in at plus 200. So and Duplessis opposite him minus 240ish. It looks like not really bad odds, especially considering the fact. I mean, that makes me feel good as a DDP fan. That Vegas is kind of siding with him. So I'm gonna roll with DDP. I think this is gonna be a decision victory. But I'd like to see him knock out Derek Brunson and continue to rise up the ranks in the middleweight division. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Derek Brunson, that was a vicious KO that Jared Cannonier did on landing those elbows from like basically the crucifix position. And you don't know how at 39 years old or at the time it happened, 38, that's going to affect Derek Brunson, especially with the accumulation of damage. He is a wrestler first. He does do a little bit of boxing and stand-up at the end of the day. I think Dricus Du Plessis is going to be that caliber opponent, kind of similar to that last fight we're talking about, Marc-Andre Barrios and Julian Marquez. Like I feel like these guys, they're almost, I don't want to put them into necessarily categories, but some of them certainly do fall into them where they just can't beat that top level of competition. I think Dricus Du Plessis is a guy who is on his way. He's just made it in the top 15, and I think he's going to make it in the top 10 after this fight, ranked at number 12 right now, I believe. So I think Dricus Du Plessis is going to be a guy who is going to go right through Derek Brunson. He's going to, I don't know if he's going to right through him necessarily, but I mean, they're basically the same size, but he has a lot more muscle on him. He's 29 years old. He's younger. He's quicker. He's probably stronger at this point. He has a decent ground game, as we saw against Darren Till. It's not the best because he is a kickboxer by trade, but I think he's just going to have a good enough takedown defense or good enough ability on the ground to basically not let Derek Brunson bully him. And Derek Brunson got his rise to fame most recently for bullying guys on the ground who don't have much of a ground game. I mean, you just said it. It was Edmund Shabazian, Kevin Holland, and Darren Till. Three guys who don't have a ground game. As soon as he runs into Jared Cannonier, who again has a strong wrestling background, but he likes to knock people out by trade, turns around and gets absolutely annihilated on the ground. So I think Derek Brunson has a strong ground game when he's against people who don't have a strong ground game. I think Dricus Du Plessis has a pretty middle of the road to above average on the ground, which is going to be able to thwart Derek Brunson, and he's going to pick him apart on the feet. Now, Dricus Du Plessis has this weird thing about him where in the beginning of the fight he comes out super heavy, super hard. He throws punches and it tires him out, and then he gets better and more selective and more intelligent with his strikes as the fight goes on. So I could see maybe a second or a third round finish of Derek Brunson for Dricus Du Plessis.
Yeah, I love it. And you're 100% right. That Brad Tavares fight is a perfect example where as he's getting bloodied up and he's tired rather than most other fighters who, they kind of get a little nuts, a little, not as careful. That's when he, plans everything out and starts to plot a little bit more tactical.
He gets a lot more intelligent. It's like blood makes him like, instead of see red, he, just starts to see the target much better and everything comes into focus. He needs to get hit a little bit. I guess I don't know if it's like an adrenaline dump or if that he just, feels more comfortable after being a little wobbled or whatever, or he gets too excited. I don't know what it is, but I don't know how that's going to play into the longevity. Be like, yeah, I need you to hurt me and beat me up in order for me to fight well. But we'll see what happens here. I don't think Derek Brunson is too much of a threat on the feet to hurt him. So we'll see how that match goes up. But I do think Dricus Du Plessis is going to get that done. And before we jump onto the main card, I just have one more fight that I wanted to touch on really quickly, and that's a favorite bet of ours here at Pickin Fights. It's that women's fights to go the distance. Tabitha Ricci and Jessica Penne, two girls that have some finishes on their record, but not necessarily finishers by trade. They do have a lot of decisions. And Jessica Penne has a decent ground game. Tabitha Ritchie is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I don't think either of these two are going to be tapping each other out. I think this one's going to probably go to the distance. If I had to pick, I might say Tabitha Ritchie, but I think, again, I'd rather add the fact that the fight's going to the distance into a parlay if your book will let you do that.
Yeah, I like that. Are those odds ready and available? Let's check them out real quick.
No, I look at best fight odds, and they had that place over of minus 500,000.
Yeah, that's crazy. Imagine that was the actual line, and they just had
It
it
may not be
posted
far
up.
off.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I'm thinking most likely like in the -4s, -5s.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Also, last point about DDP. I haven't had a South African champion yet, and we're getting a lot of first-time champs. So,
True.
I think the ceiling is the roof, in the words of Michael Jordan. All right, ready to dive into the main card?
Main card time.